Okay, for this section, we're going to start our talk about solving equations. We're going to look very specifically about the addition property of equality. The next worksheet, we're going to talk about the multiplication property of equality. Then we'll look at solving multi-step equations. Okay, so this is going to be a process. We'll take it nice and slow. Okay, now for this video, I've got, I think, 3 topics. I'm going to do one topic. Yeah. So we've got 3 topics. I'm going to do one video for the first 2 topics because they're both pretty short. Okay. So first we just have what is an equation. We've actually talked a little bit about what an equation is in a previous section. When we started talking about proportions and we learned how to solve proportions, we did like a really super brief unit on solving an equation that was very specific to proportions. So hopefully this isn't completely brand new to you, but we're gonna kind of present it as if you don't know this already. Okay? So in typical form, we have definitions. And the first definition is actually that of an expression, which we talked about extensively in the previous worksheet where we learned how to simplify and evaluate expressions. So an algebraic expression is the combination of numbers, variables, and operation symbols. Okay, so you're just adding and subtracting terms. All right. Now, what's really important that you understand here is that expressions do not have an equal sign. Okay, and that may seem like so not a big deal, like very trivial, but when it comes to this, it's very important to understand that expressions do not have equal signs. Okay. Now, on the flip side of that, we have the definition for an equation. Okay, so an equation is a mathematical statement where 2 expressions are equal. Okay, so if we're saying, hey, we have these 2 expressions that are equal, then an equation certainly has to have an equal sign. Okay, so as simple and trivial as that may seem, that is the difference between an expression and an equation. It's all about that equal sign. Without an equal sign, there's not a whole lot we can do. We can simplify expressions, we can evaluate expressions, but that's kind of it. Once we throw in that equal sign, we can do a bit more. We can solve an equation, and that's kind of the heart and soul of this section. Okay, so what is solving? Well, solving is the process of isolating the variable to determine its value. So our whole goal with solving is to get the variable all by itself to figure out what it equals, okay? But how on earth do we do that? Well, when we're solving equations, we want to isolate the variable, that's the goal. But to do that, essentially, we have to undo what has been done to the variable, okay? Now you have to be careful. We have to undo what has been done to the variable while maintaining balance. So what in the world do I mean by that? Well, an equation comes to us balanced. The equation may look crazy. The left may not look anything like the right, but the 2 sides are equal. Okay. Now our job is to figure out, okay, we've got this equation, it's equal, but what is the value for x that makes it equal? Okay. So what we mean by maintaining balance is the equation comes to us balanced. The left equals the right. So as we start taking steps to undo what has been done to the variable to isolate it, if we do something on one side, we have to do the same thing on the other side. That helps us maintain balance. So if we add or subtract on the left, we have to add or subtract on the right. Okay. And then same thing, if we multiply or divide, we have to do it on both sides of the equation. Okay. So our job to solve is to isolate the variable, which means we undo what has happened to the variable and we maintain balance throughout. Okay. Now we have one example for topic 1, and then I'm going to include topic 2 in this video just because they're both really short and they kind of go together. So for example 1, it says short answer. That just means these 2 things aren't totally the same, so I can't give you one set of instructions. But for part A, we want to list 2 examples of expressions. We could list literally any combination of variables, numbers, and operation symbols and just don't include an equal sign and you have an expression. So we could have something really simple like x squared minus 3x plus 5. That's an expression. It's a combination of variables, numbers, and operation symbols. Okay. We could have something that looks a slight bit more involved, like negative 3 times 4x plus 7 minus 9 times 2x plus, I don't know, 11. All right. Still an expression. It's maybe a bit more involved, has more pieces, but it's still just an expression. There's no equal sign. Okay. Now, part B says, okay, now come up with two examples of equations. We could have something really straightforward, like 4x minus 2 equals 3. That would be an equation. We've got the equal sign. You could have something a bit more involved. You could have something like 3x plus 7 times 2x minus 8 equals 14 plus 9x. I have no idea what that would equal. I pulled that completely out of thin air, but it's an equation. It has an equal sign. So you have two algebraic expressions that are set equal to each other. Okay? Now, one other thing that we need to talk about, and it goes kind of nicely with this just introduction to equations, is can we determine whether a number is a solution or not? So first, what is a solution? Okay? Well, a solution, okay, so the solution to an equation is the value for the variable that makes the equation true. So sometimes instead of seeing the wording, it's the value for the variable that makes the equation true, we'll say it's the value for the variable that satisfies the equation. It means the same thing. Okay, so when we say like we're looking for the value for the variable that satisfies the equation, we just want the value for the variable that makes the equation true. So those two things mean the same thing. Now, steps that we would need to take to determine whether a number is a solution to an equation or not is we want to basically just rewrite the entire equation. And anywhere we see the variable, plug in the value that's been given to you. So we plug the variable into the equation and then we simplify. So essentially, we evaluate both sides of the equation for whatever value that you're given as a potential solution. And then we simplify. If you get a true statement, that value is the solution. If you get a false statement, that value is not the solution. Okay, so let's look at example 2. So example 2 says determine if the given value is the solution to the equation. Well, for part A, it says determine if 4 is the solution to 3 times x minus 6 in parentheses equals 6. So we're going to rewrite the whole equation. Anywhere we see an x, we're going to plug in a 4. So we get 3 times parentheses 4 minus 6 equals 6. And we want to know, is the left really truly equal to the right? So we need to simplify the left. Well, in parentheses, we have 4 minus 6, which is negative 2. So I have 3 times negative 2. Well, 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. And so the big question here is negative 6 equal to positive 6? And the answer is no. This is false. So we would say no, 4 is not the solution. All right, so let's look at part B. So part B says determine if negative 2 is the solution to negative 4x minus 3 equals 5. So we're going to rewrite the whole equation. Anywhere we see an x, we're going to replace it with a negative 2. So we have negative 4 times negative 2 minus 3, and we want to see if that equals 5. So let's see, negative 4 times negative 2, that's going to be positive 8. So then I have 8 minus 3. Well, 8 minus 3 is 5. So does 5 equal 5? And the answer is yes, absolutely. This is true. So we would say yes, negative 2 is the solution. It is the value for the variable that satisfies the equation. It means it makes the equation true when we plug negative 2 in. Okay, so that's an introduction to what in the world is an equation, what's the difference between an equation and an expression, and then how can you tell if a value is or is not the solution. And this is really quite helpful, this stuff in topic 2, because as you're solving your equations in this section and then in future sections, you can always check your answer, which is really, really helpful. Okay, so sometimes if things feel a little bit off, you can check your answer to see if you're right or not. And I kind of like that. I like having that as like a, I don't know, sort of like a safety net. All right.